Hey, welcome to the Jess Marshall podcast. I'm your guy, Jess Marshall, and today on the show, I'm having Dr. Rich Hare, Doctor of Chiropractic. He's an accident and injury rehab specialist. He's also a rugby man, and I met him through the Dallas Harlequins. He's a really good guy. I've known the guy for about 20 years. We're going to talk about health, wellness, the way fatherhood has changed him, entrepreneurship, building and selling practices, as well as surviving through COVID. Hope you enjoy the episode. It's crazy. I think but the biggest thing is, everyone's pushing the vaccine now, which is fine. I think if you're scared of it, okay, or if you are, maybe you have compromised health or you're older, go for it. But I mean, I'm 40. Yeah. I'm not putting anything in my body that I don't believe in and that was rushed to market.
Yeah. Like, I don't have any pre-existing or any significant maladies. So, to me, the COVID, when I caught it just before Thanksgiving, wasn't even as bad as the flu. I had a cough for about 3 days, which I was able to control with Theraflu and benzonatate. I got a headache. I controlled that with Tylenol. Never had a flu. My pulse ox stayed at 98 the whole time. So I'm certainly not going to go out. Now I got antibodies, so I'm not worried about it. My son's had it already. He was just recently exposed to 2 kids, and he was with them all day, and both of them got it. He came up negative. So I'm going to wait until the vaccine has been out. I just heard some healthcare worker, and I think it was in Alaska, just had it and had a severe anaphylactic reaction to the vaccine. They were able to control, but she had to be admitted to the hospital. She may be there for a while. Yeah. But they had to give her epinephrine.
Well, here's the thing, man. If the people who are putting out the vaccine have gotten pardons before the vaccine even came out, they cannot be litigated against. If the vaccine does damage to someone, the federal government has pardoned them before the vaccine even came out. So all these big pharma companies. Yeah. So if it was safe, why would you need a pardon before your product even hits the market? Mm-hmm. So I don't know, man. I mean, hopefully it helps some people who are just in a state of unsolvable fear feel a little better about life, but I refuse to live my life in fear.
Yeah, I'm not.
As soon as they scare you, they conquer you. Mm-hmm. So I don't know who the they is
I have
to all y'all, but I know who the they is to me
right now. Yeah, that are just won't even go out of their house.
That's ridiculous in my opinion, but that's why we live in a free country. Yeah. So, I mean, if that's...
I feel bad for my son because of
school.
He plays football. Yeah. And, he only got to play in 2 games this year because he was on a freshman team and 3 or 4 they only had like 16 kids on the team. And so 3 or 4 of them were quarantined, so they didn't have enough to field a side. So then he got bumped up to JV, which has a full squad and a quarterback that was like 6'4". Right. And my son's only 5'11". Yeah. So obviously he's going to ride the bench for a while. Yeah. But so I'm hoping that the vaccine at least decreases the paranoia and life can get back to normal. Yeah. So.
Or at least some semblance of normal. I mean, I don't think we're going to go back to how it was last February ever, probably. There's so many things that have changed. Some for the better. We were talking about this on the phone a couple weeks ago, but I mean, the way we do business has changed. We've made technological advances in the last 8 months that would have taken 15 years. So now you can meet digitally. You can do all kinds of things through Zoom, Skype, meters, whatever it is.
The acceptable way to do business.
It is. Yeah.
It used to be everybody was afraid to do that for fear that, we're missing that personal aspect of, a sales call. Right. But now it's acceptable. I do Zoom calls all the time when I have to consult. The way I did business for, I had a rehab practice for inside Talos Fitness Center for 10 years, and I had a staff of athletic trainers, physical therapists, nurse practitioner, administrative staff, massage therapists, and all that. But then, so ultimately, that practice had to close because Talos had to shut down during the lockdown, and so my lease had already been up, and I've been going month to month for quite some time. And at that point, all my employees were gone. And I'm like, do I want to hire new people for fear that I may have to quarantine again? Again, because if you're not in the office making money, you still have to pay those overhead expenses. And so I thought about long and hard about going back into practice. My consulting practice, I don't really, I make enough money doing that where I don't physically have to be in practice, but technically to do the type of medical legal consulting that I do, I have to physically be in practice. So I started thinking about a new way to do it. And, when you turned me on to Matt McNeely, we spent a lot of time talking about, appointment scheduling, in payment processing, instead of hiring an employee and having to pay payroll taxes, insurance benefits, and all those kind of things. Outsource all this to a service where, and again, people are used to it now where, they schedule on an app. Apps have become very popular.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm trying to do now is just become a little bit more technologically advanced and decrease the dependency on employees.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's good. I mean, before you got into the area of accident and injury rehab, what were you doing before that?
Well, I was in the military.
Yeah.
I was
Thank
a medic.
you for your service.
Yeah, thank you. I was in the military, and that's actually how I discovered rugby, and that's kind of what brought me down this entire road. I got recruited when I was 18 years old. Some captain stopped me in a hospital and he goes, "Hey, you ever play football?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "You ever heard of rugby?" I'm like, "No." And he goes, "We get to hit people."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Sign me up."
There you go.
And so that's how it all started. So I started playing rugby when I was 18.
Was that up in Michigan?
No, that was in, at that time, I was in San Antonio, Texas.
Gotcha.
Working at a hospital called Wolford Hall Medical Center. And we had a base team, and then I ended up making a combined service military team, which was Army, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard, actually. And so we traveled all around playing military tournaments.
Nice.
And then when I got out, I played college, and then City League, and and then eventually moved to Dallas for chiropractic school, and discovered the Quins. So,
did you go to Parker?
I did go to Parker.
Okay.
I had multiple scholarship opportunities to play at Palmer, and also at Life. But at that time.
Is Palmer in Davenport?
Davenport, Iowa.
Yeah.
And they have an outstanding
They sure do.
rugby team. Several of my teammates from Alamo City Rugby went up there to play. But at that time, all my friends, my sister was living in Dallas at the time. So there was a lot of, not pressure, but I really wanted to be near my sister and all my friends that had transferred from San Antonio up to Dallas. So sometimes I regret it, but when I think about how many injuries I've had, if I had played that level of rugby for another 4 to 5 years, I might be in a wheelchair.
You might already be in that wheelchair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a brutal sport. There's no doubt about it. It's a lot of fun. But we've talked a lot about how injury prevention is so important. That comes down to flexibility, nutrition, getting your sleep, all that kind of stuff. What kind of advancements have we made in the last 20 years in terms of being able to prevent injuries because we understand nutrition and we understand the way the human body works better?
So that's an interesting question. And because I've been in practice for a little over 21 years now, I remember everybody was into static stretching back in the day. Now, probably about 10 years ago, we started hearing the term functional training or functional fitness or, dynamic stretching. And so I look at it, I see my son right now who's 14 years old and can barely touch his toes. And so I've tried to instill in him the need, the requirement to do some of the dynamic stretching, getting into a deep squat position and just kind of mobilizing the hip joints and, working on things like walking lunges where you're doing some plyometrics kind of stuff just to maintain hip mobility and hamstring flexibility. But I've seen a lot of advancement in that with the dynamic and functional training. And I'm 54 now, and after I stopped playing rugby, I went into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Right.
So I started because of all the injuries I've had, I had to completely change the focus of my training, and less weightlifting, because, bodybuilder kind of size and strength doesn't really translate into martial arts or like CrossFit or something
True.
like that. So I had to start doing more, plyometrics and high intensity interval training, which I had never heard about until, CrossFit. So I see a lot of advancements that way. People getting away from the weight machines and getting into free weights and, Olympic weightlifting, because of the popularity of CrossFit has really taken over. And some of the best athletes in the world are Olympic lifters. I mean, they'll just have tremendous muscularity, but their joint mobility, their hip flexibility, their shoulder flexibility is amazing. Yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, you just see it in pro sports. You've got guys playing older and older and older, staying at a high level, whether it's LeBron or Tom Brady or Drew Brees. A lot of that comes down to nutrition, but also understanding recovery methods like using hyperbaric, using cryo, all these types of things, which all about those, having treated and tried to help people recover from bad injuries without, surgical repairs. Sometimes an operation is necessary, but there are times when you can rehab an injury. Talk about some of those other methods, those alternative methods to
the
injury
other big one
rehab.
is peptides.
Yes.
Certainly will help restore joint integrity, help kind of heal up some of the muscle, tendon, ligament, overuse injuries. I've got a good friend of mine. You should probably ask him to come on your show. His name is Sean Wells, one of the leading supplement scientists in the United States.
Let's do it.
Just happens to live here in Dallas. Actually, he's going to be on Joe Rogan, I heard.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, he's a very interesting guy, but he's extremely knowledgeable about peptides and, all the supplements for recovery and things like that. But yeah, that stuff is really taken over. The new place that I'm at called Precision Fitness. There is a medical entity. So the name of the facility is Precision Fitness and Healthcare. So there's a healthcare entity that works out of there as well. And so they're doing the recovery IVs, they're doing the stem cell injections, peptides, hormone replacement, kind of one-stop shop.
Sure.
So,
what is it that drew you to chiropractic there out of the military once you found rugby and started getting banged up? Did you start going and seeing a chiropractor and they helped you and that kind of drew you to that field?
So I always thought that chiropractic was a bunch of hokey bullshit.
Right. A lot of people still do, man.
And so when I was in undergrad, I went to school at UT San Antonio. I was pre-med. So my desire was to go into, orthopedics,
sure,
or, something along those lines. And I was playing rugby. I can't remember if I was playing for UTSA or if I was playing for Alamo City, but I took a hit in the back and dropped me to my knees. And when I went to stand up, my back went into total lockdown. And so I literally was bent over. I went to the emergency room, the VA hospital in San Antonio, and they gave me muscle relaxers and pain relievers. And at the time, I was working as a bartender, and if I'm not working, I'm not making money. And after 4 days, I still could not stand up straight.
Wow.
I could not lay in bed. I was, at the time, I was living out at Lake McQueeney, which is outside of Seguin, Texas, near New Braunfels. And I was sleeping in one of those big tubes you pull behind the boat because I couldn't lay flat.
Damn.
And finally, one of my friends said, you should go to a chiropractor. And I'm like, yeah, emergency room wasn't able to help me. And so I went through, I was on a budget and I was going through Valpak coupons and I found one for a chiropractic visit.
Healthcare on a budget.
It was a chiropractor that had been in business forever. His name was Dr. Hoot in Seguin, Texas. And when I went in, he was blind. Didn't know if I was a male or female until he heard me talk. And he put me on this table and I didn't know what to expect. All of a sudden, I felt a spring-loaded drop underneath my back, which kind of hurt. But I'll be damned, I was able to stand up straight when I left his office.
There you go.
The next day, I felt 100%.
Wow.
a couple weeks later, maybe a month later, I was doing behind the neck shoulder presses, which now I know is not a very good exercise.
Right.
At the end of my set, I didn't have a spotter, so I leaned forward as I'm trying to press. Something popped in my neck, and within 5 minutes, I couldn't turn my head. I immediately went to the same chiropractor in Seguin, and he fixed me up. And like a couple weeks later, there was a representative from a chiropractic school in the Quad, and I started asking questions, and that's how it all started.
Interesting. So your objective was to be an orthopedist, a sports doctor,
some sports medicine, something like that. Yeah.
But then you saw just how much it can work when it's done properly.
Yeah.
And that just kind of sucked you in.
Yeah. It was amazing. It really interested me. And when I started talking to people, everybody I talked to, for the most part, everybody loved, those that go to a chiropractor on a regular basis just rave about it.
Absolutely.
And so, especially on my rugby team, everybody playing rugby needs to be needs to go to the chiropractor on a regular basis. And so everybody was raving about it. So it just so happened, like, I think there were 2 or 3 players on my team that all went to Palmer. And one of the guys ended up going to medical school. His name is Kenny Homer. He now is a trauma surgeon, I think, in Conroe. But the rest of us went into chiropractic.
Cool.
So,
what are some common misnomers, even today in 2020, about chiropractic? I mean, some people do still think it's witch doctor, snake oil stuff. Some people think it's an
online course.
Yes, they do think that. Explain your training. How long did that take?
Well, it's the same undergrad. I was a pre-med in undergrad, so it's the same kind of core curriculum. The only difference between, we get pathology, orthopedics, neurology, all this OBGYN, histology, all the same kind of stuff that you get in medical school. But our philosophy was different, obviously. So there's classes in adjusting, palpation. I remember one of the courses that I took, we actually had to take a strand of hair and put it in a phone book and just keep folding pages over and make sure you could actually palpate that. You'd actually develop a sense of touch that was so phenomenal. You could actually feel a piece of hair under about 100 pages.
Really?
In the phone book. Yeah, you start to develop a sense of touch that is just amazing.
And so as you curate that helps you to be able to find the dysfunction in whatever joint or area of the body a patient comes into you complaining about pain in.
Yes, you can. So the curriculum, the difference between medical school, I mean, they probably, academically, the difference is once you graduate from chiropractic school, you do an internship, but the internship is nothing close to medical school. We do, I don't even know how long that, maybe it was 3 semesters of internship where we're adjusting patients, but we don't get a lot of internal medicine kind of stuff, but we don't have to do a residency program. There are some schools now that are offering residency programs and, functional medicine, sports medicine, things like that. But when I graduated, you literally could graduate, take your national board exam and be practicing the following week. Medical school, obviously, you do your internship, then you do a residency, which can range from 4 years to 6 years, maybe 8 years. I don't even know. But, so that's the difference. Academic, I'd correlate it more with dental school.
Yeah.
So,
but explain the difference, though, when you're in a car accident between going to the emergency room and going to a chiropractor. Because there are major differences there. Obviously, there are times when you need a spine operation.
Well, I've been in an integrated practice for probably about 15 to 18 years. And so my philosophy is about chiropractic has changed more. When we talk about car accident patients that are, acute, I see the benefit of prescribing anti-inflammatory medication. And, your ultimate goal is to get patients better faster and get them back to normal activity. And so also with my medical legal consulting business, I review auto cases, for overutilization and, extent of injury and, medical necessity and things like that. So I see chiropractors that don't integrate with medical doctors, don't refer out for that kind of stuff, they typically take probably twice as long to get better. If you're integrating with a medical provider, to provide anti-inflammatories, or especially if you have radiating pain, in my opinion, the first course of action is an anti-inflammatory. And if that doesn't work, you step it up to a Medrol dose pack. And then obviously if that doesn't work, and you're doing conservative treatment, then you start thinking about a, epidural steroid injection or something like that.
Sure. So when we're combining and we've got all of the methods of getting you better at our disposal, we're going to be more successful faster, getting you better, getting you recovered.
In my experience, yes.
Yeah. The importance of not just being single-minded, where if you just go to a spine doctor, he's looking at, hey, I'm going to get you on the books for this operation. Whereas if you go talk to a chiropractor in an integrated practice, he can be like, I think we could probably avoid surgery if we followed this protocol, or, I really think you're probably going to need to go get that cut.
Well, I don't, honestly, I don't see a very large percentage of auto accidents that end up having surgery unless they're so bad off they never go the conservative route. They just automatically go the medical route. But you don't have to work in an integrated practice as long as you have those relationships with other medical providers at your disposal.
Sure.
And in my opinion, in my experience, I think doing that sooner rather than later benefits the patient. Ultimately, they can sleep better, they get return to normal activity faster rather than waiting months and months and months and then developing a chronic condition.
How often have you seen people who've injured their backs and necks severely by sleeping improperly? So bad pillow setup, maybe, hey, you got to sleep on your back, not your side, that type of thing.
I see it on a regular basis, but it's not a serious condition. It usually, if you fall asleep, you develop what's called, we call it a kink. Yeah. And usually what it is you start to develop a muscle contraction around the set joint, which just kind of holds that segment. It'll limit your range of motion. And so my specialty is a technique called active release. It's a soft tissue technique. It's kind of a cross between stretching and manual therapy. And so I'll get in, I'll find out where the contracture is, and I'll just, through stretching, repetition, and using my hands to kind of massage it out. A lot of times I can mobilize that joint without actually having to manipulate it. So it's not a serious condition, but it does take a few sessions to work out to completely get rid of it.
So when I guess you get your first neck stinger in football or whatever, and then you try to figure out how to solve that in yourself. So I can do this.
Oh, wow.
And people hear me do that, go, whoa, how is that possible? You have a big muscular neck. I would assume that's just because I've been doing it for so long that I've got the ability to relax all that muscle and adjust myself.
Some people tense up when they anticipate that, but right. I will tell you that if you do that habitually, and you've been doing it habitually for many, many years, you'll eventually create ligament instability. And
encouraging news.
Yeah. So
encouraging news.
It's not
outstanding.
Yeah, that's like I'm not one of those chiropractors that's going to say you need to see me 3 times a week for 6 months and then 2 times a week for 3 months because over adjusting in the same segment leads to ligament instability, which will make it wear out faster. So
that ligament instability leads to what? Arthritis?
Increased rate of arthritis.
Yeah.
So.
What is arthritis?
It's just through wear and tear, especially in the spine. It starts off, and I can guarantee if we shot an MRI of your neck, we'd see what's called disc desiccation.
Hey guys, more injuries. There you go. What's up? Yo. Woo!
Yeah, ask Matt Craig about that.
No shit.
Disc desiccation is a dehydration of disc. That's like the first part of spinal arthritis. So when that starts to happen, the disc becomes less pliable, and it'll start to shrink.
Paul Kendall, too.
I'm not familiar
Matt's
with Paul.
friend, Matt and Johan's friend, Paul.
I don't remember. I don't know if I played him. But so when you start to lose the fluid content, the disc will begin to get thinner. The posterior facet joints will approximate one another, so there'll be a little bit more wear and tear. You'll start to hear that grinding sensation of the facet joints. Sometimes you get that sharp aching pain that's just extremely localized. That can be facet pain. And so, you start to get a proliferation of it's called spondylosis. So you start to get calcium laid down, and calcium will get laid down usually around the area of the posterior facet joint, around the hole where the nerve comes out, and you can start getting bone spurs that can put pressure on nerves. Overall, it just, as the vertebral disc begins to thin, the space between the joints decreases, so does the hole where the nerve comes out. So you can start developing bony foraminal stenosis. You can get stenosis from the bone spurs. You could have potentially get a disc injury, which you'll get some soft tissue or a discal impingement on the nerve. And so spinal arthritis is just a dehydration of the disc, a buildup of calcium deposits around the joints. Your body will try to fuse a vertebral segment. So what you'll see on x-ray is you'll start to see kind of a beak-like formation at the front of the vertebra at the bottom part, and then at the front of the vertebra on the bottom part. And so they're trying to create a bony bridge to stabilize that joint.
Your body's trying to adapt.
Yeah, it's trying to stabilize
itself.
A joint, because obviously movement could potentially aggravate that.
Sure.
So it's trying to turn it into one contiguous segment.
Gotcha.
Just like a surgeon would.
You've been doing this long enough to know what type of neck maladies people had before this came along.
What are you going to show me?
I'm just looking at my phone. What has the proliferation of these done to cause neck and back issues? Because part of my problem, and I get challenged by people on my team all the time, like, you're on that phone too much. I'm like, do you like that paycheck on Friday, man?
Right.
Like, I got to be on that phone.
Slouchy posture for sure.
Slouchy posture.
Yeah. My son is 14 years old, and I constantly have to be correcting him. I'm like, dude, sit up. Stop doing this. He'll sometimes sit with his legs crossed and just lean over.
Right.
So we're developing kids that will have a slouchy posture like an adult before they graduate from high school.
You can get a bad posture just by the way you hover over your tablet or phone. Yeah. Even if your biomechanics are good, you got a strong back, you've got, you're training your body properly. Like every 2 times you train your chest, you're training your back, things of that nature. You can still create that hunch by.
You talk about training and stretching, you'll be better off than the people that aren't, because what happens over time is when a muscle is in a relaxed state, it's called muscle creep. The muscle will physically shorten over time.
Like atrophy?
Not atrophy, just
it's shortening.
It'll shorten.
Wow.
Just like your hamstrings. If you don't stretch your hamstrings, you lose that ability to bend down, touch your toes.
Yes, you do.
What happens is a muscle so when you're leaning forward all day long, 8 hours a day, if you have a horrible chair or you just like to work on a laptop, the muscles, the paraspinal muscles that run parallel to your spine, they will physically lengthen. And when a muscle is in a state of continued lengthening, it physically weakens. And so you're creating muscle contraction on the front side and muscle elongation on the other side. And so what do you think is going to win? It's going to be the muscle that's contracting. So it's just going to hold you into that position.
Have you noticed more neck? Hey, doc, I got neck pain. I can't explain. I haven't played a contact sport or anything. Have you noticed more of that because people are on their phones 24/7?
Well, again, because I've been in practice long enough.
I mean, that's why I said it. I mean, I'm not trying to call you out for being older than
they
dirt.
They didn't have laptops when I first.
With you,
I remember the internet came. Well, was it like 1999,
like 2000, 2001 is when email came out.
And laptops didn't come out probably for another 4 or 5 years.
Right. And you had maybe a bag phone. But
God. The big walkie-talkie kind.
Yeah.
But so I'd noticed people that work on laptops obviously have, worse posture than I work at a PC. I got rid of my laptop a long time ago because I found myself developing significant headaches.
Why? Just because you throw it on the coffee table and bend over that thing?
Well, there's no way to be ergonomic with a laptop unless you have a docking station. Ideally, this is the position you need to be in. If your screen is down, your head is in a flexed position, and because you need to see the screen, you're going to have it way out here. So as soon as your back is no longer touching your chair, your shoulder blades are protracted and elevated. Your upper traps are going to be tight. Your rhomboid muscles.
Because that screen is so low.
Yeah, and you're reaching for it.
Gotcha.
So
that's very interesting. It's very concerning. How important is it for people who sit all day to be doing something like getting their steps or investing in a stand-up desk or trying as hard as maybe I type on my tailgate on the truck sometimes so that I'm not sitting over at the console in the truck typing or just whatever.
I didn't realize.
I know this is big with cops too.
Yeah.
Cops, highway patrol, they're driving all day, they're typing. It just destroys their backs.
I didn't realize this until COVID because I had been active in, even though I wasn't competing in CrossFit any longer, I was still doing CrossFit style workouts where I'm doing power cleans, squat snatches. I've got pretty good hip mobility. COVID started, everybody's in lockdown. I start working at home, just doing my consulting, which I used to do part-time. Now, because I can't practice, I start doing it full-time. So I literally am spending 8, sometimes 12 hours a day at my computer. And all of a sudden, I also bought a Harley, and I've got the road pegs out there, and with my leg extended, trying to shift, I start developing a little bit of catch in my hip, and then combine that with sitting for 8 to 12 hours a day, I start losing my hip mobility, and combine that with the gout, and it was just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
But prolonged sitting creates muscle deconditioning, especially in your core. I used to tighten the back of my chair in an upright position so I could lean back into it. But what I realized, I had no core engagement when I was doing that. So I loosened that up, and if I lean back into it, I'll fall backward. But I use it more as a postural support now. That way I keep my core engaged,
Sure.
at least,
Do you recommend sitting on a fitness ball if you can for an hour? Or is that kind of a old wives' tale of improvement?
Well, you trade, it puts your pelvis into a good anteriorly rotated position so that you can maintain the curvature of your lower back, but you don't have any upper back support, and chances are you're working on a laptop. What I've seen with people that use those is they start developing a lot of upper trapezius pain, postural strain up there. So you train one thing for the other.
Yeah.
There's no substitute for a good ergonomic chair.
Right.
Yeah.
What is it that most people with a bad back? I got a bad back. It's my DNA. It's my genetics. What is it that someone with a bad back can do to eliminate the chronic pain and to try to cure that? Is it all come down to core training?
I think so. I have a significant disc injury at L5S1. I've had
From what, bro?
Rugby. So I've had it for many, many years, but it does not prevent me. I played rugby on it. I think it first was diagnosed when I was probably 21 or 22 years old. But I continued to play. I'd have episodes where I'd move a certain way and it kind of lock up on me. But by maintaining hip mobility and core stability, I very rarely ever had lower back pain. I didn't have any significant lower back pain until COVID started, and I, stopped doing that because I bought some weights, put them in my garage, and I was doing a lot of upper body, but I don't have any leg machines.
Sure.
The one thing I did love is I bought one of those big rollers. It looks like a rolling pin, and I would just do rollouts.
Yeah.
And that's like the only thing I could do for my core, other than just maybe a overhead. You're holding the kettlebell, getting into a deep squat. There's still a little core activation there, but I didn't have any leg machines. I remember one day I was doing some heavy weights, and you get tired and you drop them. My neighbor started complaining because of the sound of bumper plates on concrete, and it would actually shake their foundation.
Yes.
So I had to stop doing that.
Throwing around the big iron. Talk about how bad it is, our society, our culture, in terms of our sedentary lifestyles. So we're on our phones, we're watching Netflix all day, we're on the laptop working, we're Zooming now. It's
going to get worse.
Yeah.
So right before you asked that question, I was getting ready to tell you about
We're all about gloom and doom here on the Jess Marshall podcast, brother.
I read a study one time where they compared the incidence of lower back pain with different cultures. So in India, everybody sits Indian style, or they sit on the back of their heels. In Japan, they sit on the back of their heels. United States or in China, they squat over a potty.
Yeah.
They don't, and they don't. There's not a lot of. You go to an Asian person's home. There's not a lot of chairs. There's a lot of cushions on the floor. So in order to sit that way, you have to have phenomenal hip mobility. Well, you compare the incidence of lower back pain with countries like India, the Middle East, Asia, to the United States. We have a civilized nation. We have one of the highest rates of debilitating back pain, and a lot of it can be attributed to lack of hip mobility.
Yeah.
So sitting just,
we were not created to sit.
No.
Actually, our bodies were created to walk.
Yeah.
The upper body, the limbs are smaller. That's right. Than the lower.
Yeah.
Because the lower carried your weight.
Yep.
Your upper body was used to defend yourself or hunt and gather. Your lower body was locomoting your entire existence over hills and through meadows and so on, following Jesus of Nazareth or whatever they did back in the day. Well, now, jump on a plane, then get an Uber, then go to the hotel, then Zoom.
Then watch TV.
Then go to sleep, then get up, Uber to the airport, get on the... So how important is our getting steps in? How important is that to your overall health and wellness?
It's paramount. I mean, you need the cardiovascular. You need to get up and get out of that sitting position and move around. You got to create mobility because you're not going to get it sitting down.
Have you had anyone in corporate America come to you and say, hey, we want you to come through and do an analysis of all of our facilities and set them up with Veridesk or any of those other stand-up type assemblies?
I kind of had that when I first started practicing. I was treating a bunch of guys that worked at Discount Tire, and they had a high rate of back injuries. And so they asked me to go in there one time and just say, hey, what would you change here? And it was just a matter of, elevating some of their equipment, some of their tire changing equipment, so they're not having to bend over at the waist. Instead of bending over to put a wheel on a car, raise it up a little higher so you're working, so you're not bending. I've had a couple of people ask me to do ergonomic evaluations. Honestly, I don't do it a lot because I'm outside my office and
Sure.
And then, I'm always busy treating patients, so it's not something I can do. But I'll give somebody a brief rundown, just sitting at my own desk. I'll ask them what kind of computer they're working with, either a laptop or a PC or a desktop. Or if they're on a laptop, I'm like, are you using a docking station? No. I said, well, I'd start off with a docking station, a separate keyboard, so that, ideally when you're working on a computer, your elbows need to be mid-axillary right here. Arms need to be parallel with the floor. The middle of your monitor needs to be at eye level. Because if you're not, you're developing postural strain. And it's going to take a toll. So,
man, yeah, those are good tips. I'm trying to think of how I do most of my office work, and it's probably all wrong. So I have some improvements to make.
The tailgate of your truck, put it on the hood.
There you go.
And stand up, use it as a Veridesk. There
you go. What are if someone's already seeing a chiropractor? They've already taken that step, and they are getting care. What are some red flags they should be on the lookout for? That repeated, like, I need to see you 3 times a week for 6 weeks.
I'm not going to get into that. I have a completely different philosophy. My philosophy.
I want you to start throwing people under the bus, man.
So the reason my philosophy has changed is so when I first got out of chiropractic school, I was doing the same thing, the 3 times a week. I was using passive modalities, electronic muscle stim, intersegmental traction, heat and cold, that kind of stuff. That all feels good, but it doesn't stabilize anything. And it wasn't until I started my first integrated practice was a pain management doctor by the name of Dino Baroga. And so we went into business together, and we hired a physical therapist.
Yep. I remember Dino.
And so I realized that physical therapists had, a lot of access to tools that I didn't have access to. And one of those was a technique called muscle energy technique that was developed by an osteopath. And it was about using body positioning and muscle contraction, isometric muscle contraction, to try to realign a pelvis without actually manipulating it. And so that was the first lesson that I learned. And so when I when TELUS reached out to me, 10, 12 years ago and asked me if I wanted to partner with them on a rehab facility. And I jumped at the chance to do that. And so I started working with some of the best personal trainers in the United States, Everett Aberg, Cecil Hightower. All these guys were just amazing. And Everett is a mad scientist when it comes to biomechanics. I put his knowledge of biomechanics up against any physical therapist that I know.
Wow.
He's just amazing. Well, he passed that knowledge on to all the trainers. And so when I started focusing on biomechanics and started focusing on corrective exercise to stabilize the pelvic region, I noticed I got my patients better faster and I didn't have to adjust them as much.
Interesting.
And so then I can only see one patient an hour if I'm doing rehab. I just didn't have time for that. So I hired a physical therapist. Well, started with an athletic trainer, which have the same scope of practice as a PT. They just have to work directly under a physician. And then I switched to a physical therapist. And again, I learned a lot about, the way physical therapists treated. And I noticed that when I would integrate physical therapy with chiropractic, I would get my patients better in probably half the time. Literally, patients that would come in every time and you go to a chiropractor, they lay on the table and say, oh, your leg length is off again. After 3 visits of physical therapy, the horizontal alignment of the pelvis was stabilized, and I didn't have to adjust the pelvis anymore. Then I could start working on other areas. So it's kind of like the foundation of your house. If you got, if your foundation is uneven, you dig under, you put some pillars under there, you try to balance that out. You don't go trying to fix all the cracks and everything in the sheetrock and the glass because it's a moot point.
No.
And so my philosophy has changed. It's more of a rehab-based philosophy now. That doesn't mean that my way is the best way. I feel more confident pushing that kind of stuff than the repetitive adjusting.
Sure.
Because I have seen patients that, have been adjusted over and over and over again, and they'll come in and see me and they're like, oh my God, I sneezed and my neck went out. I'm like, and I try to adjust them and their neck doesn't require any effort. Everything just releases. It's because there's no ligament stability anymore. So.
What's one way that people at home can strengthen their neck so that they don't have that chronic neck pain?
Oh, I think first is
safely
just getting rid of the things that are putting you into a bad position. There's no secret neck exercise. Just doing your normal, when you're doing, working out in the gym, just maintaining a neutral spine, a lot of times is enough to fire your stabilizing muscles. When I used to do jiu-jitsu, guys were, they're always pulling on your head. You remember this. Mm-hmm. You get in a neck crank position, and you're resisting the urge to let them bend your head down. So you're getting some neck stuff. I don't know that you specifically need to do neck exercises. I know our gym has one of those.
Yeah,
one of those kind of machines.
Sure.
I never do that. I focus more on isometric than I do concentric movement in the neck. So.
Did your understanding of the way the human body works help you excel at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Pressure points, weak points, the lack of flexibility, being able to scope that on an opponent before you even get them on the mat?
It's funny because there are, at the gym I was at, there's probably 5 or 6 chiropractors that were training at Machado Jiu-Jitsu and also at Star Jiu-Jitsu. I don't know if it's our knowledge of joint mechanics, but yeah, we can certainly put people in positions where if you don't tap, you're going to the hospital.
You got the cheat codes?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I didn't know about pressure points or anything like that.
Right.
But I did know if I put somebody into a key lock, just how much force it would take to dislocate their shoulder or their elbow.
Gotcha.
So
when you got out of Parker, did you join a practice or did you start your own practice?
So my first opportunity was I was an independent contractor at a place called Dallas Chiropractic Associates. First chiropractor I ever met, his name is Lee Moses. He is now the chiropractor that's in charge of the chiropractic physical medicine program at the VA hospital. So very successful chiropractor, taught me a lot of stuff. I still see, for some reason, his wife doesn't really want him working on her. I don't know why.
Really?
So I continue to treat his wife. I treat his kids from time to time.
If your own wife doesn't trust you.
No, it's not that she doesn't.
I'm just fucking
Because
around,
I remember
man.
when I was married, my wife said to me one time, she goes, "You're not doing it right." I'm like, "Who are you talking to?"
What did you
So
YouTube it? How do you know I'm not doing it right?
She stayed at a Holiday Inn expressing it.
Yeah, there you go.
No, but our spouses usually will talk to us differently. No, Lee's a very accomplished chiropractor, but yeah, I think it's probably he doesn't want to treat his wife.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's probably
we don't want to listen to him.
Right.
You know.
So
complain.
would you consider him like a mentor right
he
out of
was
school?
certainly. Yeah. he
Did
was
you
a great-
learn the business side of it?
I did, but the business has changed
Yeah.
so much. You know, I think the most I've ever learned is when I joined a integrated medical group called First Health. I learned a lot from, Steve Ward and another jiu-jitsu guy, jiu-jitsu black belt at Star, a guy named Dar Griffith. You talk about volleyball. He was a pro volleyball player. Yeah, super great guys. I learned a lot from them as far as the business aspect of medicine, chiropractic, all that kind of stuff. So,
I mean, ever since I've met you, and this is part of the reason you're on here, not just to chop it up about, hey, how to rehab injuries, but the entrepreneurial fire has always been there.
Yeah.
You've always been, hey, I'm going to branch out. I'm going to start this. Hey, I'm integrating this. Hey, I've added this to my practice. I mean, I've known you since 2003, 4, 5, somewhere in there.
yeah, I think I joined the Quins in 2003.
Yeah. So, was that entrepreneurial fire always there? Because a lot of people, when they think I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a surgeon, there's not really an entrepreneurial side of it there. Or did that start to come about when you started to see what was possible through some of your mentors or some of the other people in the chiropractic
Yeah,
field?
I mean, if you don't have an entrepreneurial spirit, you're not going to make the kind of money that you want to make or you need to make. I've been fortunate enough. This will be the fourth practice that I've started. I've sold 2 practices now. I get them up and running, and then decide to make a change, and somebody offers to buy me out, and so I sell. And so I've learned a lot over the years about how, we were talking about how COVID has affected practice. So this practice that I'm starting now, I'm going to set it up so on a very low overhead. I want to rent a room, or I need to negotiate a little bit more with the gentleman I'm in business with, but I don't want to I want to outsource some of the tasks, like the scheduling and all those kind of things. I no longer want to mess with insurance because you have to hire a staff to deal with insurance, and I'd rather have to wait for that one patient that's willing to pay cash for my services rather than to treat 2 or 3 people to make the amount of money that I make from one cash patient. So
The insurance racket's crazy.
yeah,
I think it's just so sad that a lot of people don't know what their insurance doesn't cover. You don't know what you don't know about your insurance policy until you're in pain and you need help and you figure out you're not covered for that.
it's crazy. So was it you that reached out on the Quins thing asking about health insurance? Who we recommend?
I did not. Someone did ask. It was Jarvis.
Oh, okay. I was going to respond to it, but he already had like 10 or 15. But
Yeah, I was one of those.
I did that about 3 months ago, and my phone has not stopped ringing.
Right.
The Texas Chiropractic Association supposedly had a healthcare plan that any member could
I
join.
can roll in. or
And
something.
basically, it sold me out to a bucket list of people when
Yeah.
I started filling. And so I constantly get phone calls from people. And so it's daunting trying to actually find if you're self-employed, it's very daunting to actually find
I got
an
a guy.
insurance policy.
I got a guy.
You need to give the info.
I will. I keep trying to get him to come to Dallas. He used to live here. He lives in East Texas now. Greg, come back to Dallas. Get on the podcast.
Well, I'm in East Texas.
It's awesome.
A couple times a week. So.
He'll Zoom with you. But
Okay.
I try to do all these podcasts in person just because people don't stick with Zoom podcasts for very long. But he'll take care of you.
Okay.
And that's a big thing. And he can help set up health savings account, things like that you can pay for chiropractic care out of.
Yeah.
Those HSAs are awesome.
And that's what we're doing now. The healthcare plans, the deductible has just gotten so
It's insane.
ridiculous out of.
Especially if you want it to cover anything worth a damn.
I know the policy with the group I'm with right now. It's like a $5,000 deductible.
Yeah.
but I'm at that age now where I need to start getting some surgeries.
Yeah,
so I'm going to have to pony up the five grand.
Well, you need a new wheel. You're hobbling around over there like you're off Lord of the Rings or some shit. We got to get you fixed, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel your pain. I got to think. I slipped and fell. This was like 3 months ago.
In the tub?
No. I don't take baths, Rich. I'm an all-American man. Okay. I hose off in the backyard with cold water.
There you go.
No, but it was very odd. Well, when you slip, and I just drilled my right knee into the ground on the inside of the knee where it's just bone. And I'll be fine. And then I'll go do some either unweighted or very lightweight squats or walking lunges. Mm-hmm. And then just this very odd, dull, it's not a horrible pain, but it's there. Like if I tried to go run, I'd have an issue. And I don't know what it is. It's a weird deal. That's why I've been looking so much into that.
Come in and I'll check it out.
Yeah, bend it around, see if you can figure
out what's
it out.
going on in there.
Yeah, it's a weird deal, man. I mean, I think that lack of flexibility, especially as you get older, you see a guy like LeBron. I mean, most of what he does is stretch, yoga, low impact.
Yeah.
Tom Brady, same deal.
Yeah. Several years ago, I forget what football player it was doing Pilates. Mm-hmm. Pilates is a great.
Wasn't it Drew Brees?
No, I can't remember who it was. Maybe Drew is doing.
He does some
Pilates, but Pilates is a great workout program. I used to date a woman that owned Beyond Pilates, and so our agreement. One day she came and did CrossFit with me, and she's like, "I hate you." She goes, "Now you got to come do one of my Pilates workouts," and that was one of the most painful leg exercises. I mean, she had me on, I think they call it a reformer, and it had a sliding bed that was hooked up to springs, and you kept doing this lunge exercise, but you're focused on the eccentric component of the lunge. And man, I could not sit down for a week. Or I could sit, I couldn't get up for about a week. I mean, it hit me hard.
Man, that does not sound enjoyable.
But that's why women have such beautiful curves, because they're not throwing around a bunch of heavy weight.
This is true.
They're working on those elongated, taking a muscle through its entire range of motion. So
talk about that whole bodybuilder lifestyle, the bodybuilder diet, the bodybuilder lifestyle, the throwing around the big weights, the putting on the big bulk, just the wear and tear that can have on your body overall. I mean, obviously we know what it does to the heart.
Yeah.
But what is that? And have you transitioned out of that? Or are you trying to a degree?
So it's funny. So I've relocated my practice now to Precision Fitness on Preston Road, right behind the what is the name of that Mexican restaurant? I can't remember, but it's near. I think it's Somerset in Preston, and several of the guys there have been or are competitive bodybuilders, and so we're shooting this shit, and we're all talking about, oh man, my elbow hurts, my shoulders hurt, I can't bend down and tie my shoe, just all these things, because when you lift heavy all the time, it puts wear and tear on your joints. You're more susceptible to tendonitis, and so yeah, it takes a toll on your spine. Some of the younger guys understand the concept of, you need to have a light day in there. You need to focus on some, unlike the old guys.
Yeah.
It's
like Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah.
Who can't walk.
Yeah, he can't.
He's like crippled.
Yeah, there's a couple guys in my gym that are, early 30s that just have phenomenal physiques, and they have great flexibility. You don't hear them complaining about anything. Their idea of heavy lightweight is what I consider ridiculously heavy. But I think it's important to change it up. Again, if you were to look at the workout program for an Olympic lifter, they understand the need for joint mobility. They can get into a squat, 300-400 pound squat, squat clean, and their ass is right on their heels.
Right.
They've got phenomenal mobility, but they don't work out with heavy weights all the time. It's more about technique. So they'll do lightweight and just focus on the technique part, and they might go heavy one day a week or every couple of weeks. But it's very strategic. not like what I used to do. Every time I did bench press, the goal was to get to 315 pounds.
Yeah.
No matter how long it took me to get there.
Just trying to PR every time.
Yeah. So now I can barely do, I think I did 225 the other day for the first time in probably a couple of years. It's because I've changed my workouts.
Yeah.
You know, I bought one of those Elite EFT or FT bars, the ones that have the different hand positionings.
Right.
And what I realized is that barbell bench press, especially if you go heavy all the time, it actually, you know, especially when your arms are way out here, puts a little bit of a strain on your AC joint.
Yeah,
So you start
absolutely.
to develop what's called weightlifter's clavicle when you get to be my age. And what that is osteolysis of the AC joint. And you start to get bone spurs underneath the collarbone. You can start getting some irritation to the rotator cuff tendons. And you can get a rotator cuff tear, but it certainly will cause a lot of pain. And so what I realize is I can't do that grip anymore without significant pain. But if I just turn my wrist in just a little bit, it takes my shoulder into a more biomechanically correct position. This is more correct simulating running gait than this is, for me anyways.
Sure.
And so that has allowed me to slowly kind of rebuild or regain some of the strength that I have lost because of the chronic shoulder injuries.
That makes sense. I know you grew up playing college sports, then obviously were recruited to and started playing rugby. Did that whole team sport thing help you when you started putting together these practices? You understand how to run a team, how to lead by example, how to inspire people, hold people accountable?
Well, it certainly, you know, the way being part of a team certainly helped market the practice. Because when I first was in my internship at Parker, we had to find our own patients. And, you know, trying to talk somebody into actually paying cash money to go to somebody that's not licensed and that's basically
You got to be a
practicing
closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I joined at the time it was called the Dallas Blues. It was a rugby team made up of Dallas police officers. And so it just so happened that at Parker College, I think they treated firefighters and police officers for free. And so I had a slew of the Dallas police officers coming in for free adjustments 2 to 3 times a week. And I was able to get through that pretty quick. And so then, you know, it helped me market my practice for sure. As far as learning things, you know, I certainly saw a lot of different injuries. And if I didn't know how to treat it, you know, I had to research it or ask somebody. So I certainly benefited from that, you know.
It sounds like you should add a sector to your consulting business where if a young chiropractor just getting out of school wants to learn how to build up a practice and sell a practice, they should reach out to you.
So I have done preceptorships where people will, students, if they have time, finish their internship early, they'll come in and just kind of follow. Telos has a proprietary corrective exercise protocol that I've really I think it's just amazing, and I've adopted as my primary rehab protocol.
Well, they don't have it anymore, do they?
No, but so Everett Aberg was actually the developer of what's called orthokinetics, and he has a patent on it. It's copyrighted, and he teaches it. It's been approved for continuing education credits for athletic trainers, physical therapists. I don't think we've gotten chiropractic schools on board for whatever reason. It's really hard, but and athletic trainers. And so he's going to continue to do that. I think now he's over at Cooper Clinic, so he'll continue to teach people. But so I have brought people in to teach it, especially when I had access to that facility.
Yeah,
I mean, it was just an amazing. Had you ever been in there?
Yeah,
yeah. Did you come? I can't remember if you came to see me.
One of the McNeely's mother-in-law used to train over there.
Yeah. What was Matt's younger brother? That's the one I played with.
Patrick and Tim.
Tim.
Yeah.
Tim. I think Tim used to work out there.
Yeah.
No, his other brother.
Patrick.
The one that had reddish hair. Yeah. He did work out there for quite a while.
Yep. So I've been in there a few times. Yeah, that's an amazing facility. It's such a bummer that it's out of business now.
Well, I mean, COVID. What do they say? 30% of the health clubs.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
just
bad.
last week, my girlfriend was driving down Preston Road in Frisco, and there was an office chair with a big cardboard sign that said fire sale. And it was right in front of 24-Hour Fitness because the one up there went out of business. And so we went in, I bought kettlebells, bumper plates. We actually bought some leather club chairs. I bought a practically brand new commercial copy machine. They were just selling everything.
Wow.
Unfortunately, people weren't buying the equipment because, I think the price was a little high for that. But you also have to break those things down. I mean, they weigh. I've done this twice now, where I had to. I've outfitted 2 rehab clinics and buying, especially the free motion equipment. That stuff is so ridiculously heavy.
Yeah.
You have to break it down, and it's just a hassle.
And go reassemble it all.
Yeah, it's a pain.
Yeah, I can only imagine. What is something that you did not anticipate when you first got into chiropractic? You start seeing these mentors, they're having success, and then you're like, man, I'm going to launch out. I'm going to start my own thing. What is a piece of adversity or a challenge that you did not anticipate that's maybe different than just making payroll?
The first thing that hit me was, I thought when I first went into practice, I would make 100% of what I billed.
Right.
And so I got my first check. I was anticipating making, $125, $150 a patient. No, it was like $45 after insurance. I didn't understand being in network with insurance and, having to take a provider discount. So that was huge. That was a gut check.
Yeah, that was some ice water to the face.
Down my back.
A dose of reality.
Kicking the
Here,
nuts.
we're going to give you all these clients. You're going to be really busy, but you got to work for 33% of what you should be paid.
It's probably around, well, I said 45, who knows, but average reimbursement's probably about 45% of what you bill. It's not very good.
Yeah.
There's strength in numbers, and if you're part of a large group, you can negotiate a higher contract. That was my first big kick in the pants.
Dose of reality. What's something that you haven't done in business yet that you want to do that's on your business bucket list?
So I told you, I feel like the kids the adults coming out of chiropractic school don't have the knowledge to do rehab. We didn't really I think we got 1 semester of physiotherapy.
And that hasn't changed in 20 years?
Not that I've seen. They just, they don't teach, I think they spent 1 semester teaching us how to use passive modalities, and we didn't really discuss exercise protocols. We certainly don't know physical therapy like a physical therapist does. And that translates into what I'm seeing now when I review cases. What I want to do, what I'm attempting to do, is I have developed a continuing education course that I'm trying to get approved by the Texas Board of Chiropractic right now to teach. First of all, we don't, when I was in chiropractic school, the documentation that we learned certainly does not translate into the type of practice that I was in. I have had to, take seminars and learn. The big thing was when I went over to Telos, and I'm billing for physical therapy service. Actually, another kick in the pants was I had an NFL player that came to see me. I think it was Orrin O'Neill. He used to play for the Raiders. And the guy came in. We fixed him up. He was just so excited. He was able to he didn't think he was going to be able to play. We got him set up to go back to mini camp. And I think as soon as he got there, he got cut, and he was going to go to the 49ers. But anyways, long story short, when I billed for the services, it got kicked back. And I didn't know. I thought I could just, write up all the exercises and submit it. What I realized is that my documentation didn't meet the medical necessity for treatment. And so that was another kick in the pants. And so I wanted to I'm running a rehab practice. I need to learn the correct way to do the notes so that I can get paid.
Yeah.
And so I went on started taking all kinds of seminars. I learned from some of the physical therapists that I worked with in the past. And so I've come up with a course that I teach now. But I want to start teaching chiropractors.
Is that going to be part of your consulting business?
Yes.
Awesome.
I've got a chiropractor right now that the material I have is not enough. It's not going to fill a 16-hour continuing education course. Literally, it would only take 2 to 3 hours. And so I'm trying to piggyback on another chiropractor's course that he's teaching, so that we can fill 16 hours. But so that's my next thing is I want to give back to the profession. I want to teach people the correct way to bill and code, and then I want to teach rehab for chiropractors that just don't know. They think that just standing on one of those vibration plates and just saying patient stood on a vibration plate for 15 minutes is good enough. No,
right.
You've got to do more than that. You've got to document some skilled intervention. So I want to teach people the correct way to document it and give them exercise protocols. Like I said, when I start rehabbing patients that come in with pelvic dysfunction, 2 or 3 sessions and their pelvis is stabilized, I don't have to adjust them anymore. I want to pass that knowledge on to other people.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Especially when you figure out a cheat code or a hack or a hint like that, for you to be able to monetize that, but then also pass that along.
I don't really care about making money on. I want to elevate our profession.
Still got to put fuel in your car.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is.
I don't do it for free.
When you were trying to go out and find clients, right? Build your first practice. You did what I call passion networking. So you were passionate about rugby. You went and networked there, where other people who are passionate about the same thing then all start to refer each other back to each other. Mm-hmm. That's a great thing about an active, passionate hobby like that. Mm-hmm. What else were you doing to go track down? I mean, you're new to Dallas. You didn't grow up here. You didn't have high school roots here. How are you going out and finding clients?
So the best thing that ever happened to me was when I had the opportunity to go over to Telos Fitness Center. Telos was probably the premier fitness center in the Dallas area, and had they were very well known. And so when oh my God, Telos has a chiropractor. So obviously that elevated my standing in the chiropractic community, because Telos isn't just going to bring any old person over here. They had another really good chiropractor in there before me. His name was Troy Van Biesen. Did a lot to promote Telos. He had a very good sports medicine practice. I think he's may still be in Dallas, or maybe he's up in Frisco or something. But so that did a lot to increase my publicity, but also having access to the world's best equipment. I mean, Telos was the flagship for free motion.
Yeah.
And free motion equipment for rehab is just amazing, because it's 3-dimensional. Right. You can train somebody in all planes of motion with one machine. And so when we started integrating that, the word got out. I started getting patients that had gone through physical therapy somewhere else and didn't get what they needed out of it.
Right.
And so it just so happened that a good friend of mine, who is a chiropractor by the name of Brandon Knutson, was working at Addison Payne. Mm-hmm. And Addison Payne used to have their own physical therapy department, but they did away with it. And so because I was close proximity, they started sending their patients down here. And so they started seeing the results that we were getting were just amazing. And so those guys had a network of surgeons. So all of a sudden I've got surgeons from Methodist Hospital sending me, lumbar 360 fusion. And so by just communicating with the medical doctors and giving them updates every 2 weeks on their patients' progress, and seeing that patients were, getting better ahead of schedule, and being able to resume their normal activities because of the type of rehab that we were doing, the word just spread. And so I was getting referrals from, I had Texas Back Institute sending stuff. There's a spine surgeon down on Frankfurt in the Tollway, Centers for Spine Care. They were sending us a lot of stuff. So it just probably the net, working with Addison Payne, and then it just kind of spread like wildfire from there.
You're very driven. You're very ambitious, goal-oriented. Where'd that come from?
Probably the military. Yeah. In the military, the mantra is any job worth doing is worth doing 100%. You do not do shoddy work in the military unless you want to clean toilet. Air Force doesn't clean toilets. They hire civil service for that. But in the military, it's got to be done correctly the first time. And so I try to teach my son this philosophy, and I tried to teach all my employees, and it didn't always work. But my mantra, or my philosophy is, going to work in the morning, 15 minutes early is on time. On time is late. Late is unacceptable. And so any job worth doing needs to be done, is worth doing correctly. And I'm trying to teach that to my son. I've done it to my employees. Most of them have gotten it. Some didn't, but they didn't last very long. So
that's the beauty of running your own deal, right?
Yeah.
Because it kind of takes the shape of whatever you want it to take the shape of.
Yeah.
Hey, I want you guys to be ambitious. I want you to be on time, which is early. I say the same thing. Early is on time.
Yeah.
On time is late. Always be looking for work. Mm-hmm. A lot of the same things you look for in a good, rugby player.
Yeah.
Looking for work, clever, ambitious, friendly.
Mm-hmm. That's why military people make such awesome employees.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
What got you into the military in the first place? That was right out of high school?
Yeah. So my plan after high school was I was really into scuba diving at the time. And because I grew up on the Great Lakes, and so I did a lot of wreck diving. And so I really wanted to go into commercial diving. Unfortunately, my best friend that I was going to go with passed away. And
diving?
No. Hunting accident.
Man.
And so there was a guy in my high school that was a year older than me that joined the Air Force, and he came back and he was telling me about Air Force Pararescue, which is the Air Force's version of Special Forces. Mm-hmm. And that's all I needed to hear. And that's what I wanted to do. That's why I joined the Air Force. I didn't make it all the way through, but that's why I joined the military. So I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, but my vision was not, in the Navy SEALs, you have to have 20/20 vision. Air Force Pararescue, your vision, as long as it was correctable to 20/20, was all you needed. So you could wear corrective lenses and still make it. So.
Do you think that the patterns that you set that young are what keep you on track now?
Absolutely.
Keep you just driving forward?
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Every day it's your best.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is.
Man, it's so easy to fall off the goal train, I found myself doing that during the start of COVID. I remember having a conversation with my sister and I said, man, I went 24 hours the other day without taking a shower because I didn't have to leave my house.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to lose that motivation if you aren't consistently setting goals. Now I wake up, I'm like, well, the night before I go to bed, I'm like, okay, I got to wake up at 6 o'clock tomorrow. These are the things I want to get done. I get them all done, and I feel like I've done, accomplished something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's this neuroscientist at Stanford. His name escapes me now, but he did a study and talks a lot about how you're feeling. So if you're feeling inspired and great and optimistic and all of that, it's easy to go carry that out throughout the day.
Yeah.
However, if you're feeling low and depressed, maybe you're just in a slump.
Yeah.
The best way to change that is actually to reverse engineer that through your behavior. So talk about how just showing up is 90% of the battle when you're running a small business.
I had that exact conversation with my girlfriend today. She's a realtor, and she's just been, during COVID, you would think that the real estate market would have taken a dip, but out at Cedar Creek Lake, it has just exploded because people can't go on vacation now. Mm-hmm. They want to buy lake houses. And so she has just been pulled in so many different directions, and she's stressed out. And so we were having this conversation today. She said, I feel like I'm in a funk. And I said, well, this is what you need to do. So when you walk into her house, she had ordered some shower glass. We were going to try to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Hire somebody to
tough
do
work.
It. We couldn't line up the little things where you slide the glass into. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't even think to call you for that.
Yeah.
That's probably too small of a job for you.
I know guys though.
No, we knew a guy, so I'm like, call him today. You're hosting Christmas next week. You want to get that stuff out of the hallway.
Sense of accomplishment.
Get that. You're gonna, now you walk into your house, and you've got a big box of glass panels sitting in your foyer, and it's not going to put you in a good mood because you're just going to see a mess. And then we changed around some furniture. I bought some new furniture for my house. My old furniture is sitting along in the foyer.
Yeah.
Because he can't walk up the stairs now because she's got all of her Halloween stuff just sitting on the stairs. I'm like, okay, I'll bring the boys over this weekend and we're going to put all that stuff in the attic. We'll carry all that furniture upstairs. Think of how much more productive you're going to feel.
Yep.
Now you have to find a reason to not even, she'll end up going out the back door because she doesn't want to even deal with that. So, so we came up with a plan and I'm like, do you feel better already? She goes, yes. So it's, making the battle plan is half the, for some people is half the fight.
Absolutely.
And then following through it with it obviously is the other half. So
yeah, and sometimes that just takes swinging those legs out of bed when the alarm goes off and just getting after
it's just like you'll experience this when you get a little bit older, but you wake up in the morning and you might wake up and go into the restroom, you feel great. You might get out of your car and all of a sudden you got one of those old man pains. It just comes out of nowhere. But you're like, oh God, now I can't work out. This hurts. Well, sometimes you just got to push through it. But when you're done, you're like, oh, thank God I got through that. So
has fatherhood, being a father, has that helped you build business as well? I mean, it's all about he's looking at you for everything. Employees look at you. They watch your example.
So my practice was in North Dallas. My son plays football in Frisco, so that hasn't really helped. But my son obviously, knows what I do. I put my son through rehab before the start of every season, just whatever, if he's got some kind of malady, like his pelvic alignment is off or whatever, I know if that's the case, he's going to have issues with his knee. So we'll put him through some rehab. It hasn't affected my business, but it makes him more aware.
What about being a father and having to set a good example, having to, embrace adversity like COVID, having to not show fear, things like that?
Absolutely. My son was so depressed during the first lockdown. Everybody was paranoid to even go outside. And I'm like, and it was in the middle of summer. I'm like, bud, we need to, as far as we know right now, football season is still going to be here. You need to start loosening up your arm. We need to get out into some sunlight. And he's like, I don't want to go outside. I'm like, come on, you're gone. And so we go out into a vacant field.
Good.
And we start throwing the football around. And he always felt better afterwards. You talk about teaching moments. I recently was at a restaurant the other day and I was backing out of my spot and I ran into the bumper cover of another vehicle. And I looked around, nobody's there. I'm like, I could probably take off and nobody would know any different. But I thought this is a teaching moment. I certainly don't want my son to do that. Nobody was, it was a area, a bunch of patio restaurants. And so I just got out a sheet of paper and I wrote my name and number. I'm like, I backed into your car. Please call me. We'll discuss repairs. And he's like, why don't you just leave? I'm like, because nothing will put somebody in a bad mood more than coming out and seeing a scuff on their bumper.
Well, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
Too. That's a military thing. I mean, you when people are watching, if you're doing it one way and you're doing it another way when they're
a bitch,
not,
man. You do that.
It's 100% a bitch.
You leave something, and I learned that the hard way.
Karma, especially as you age. You think about the way you did things when you were younger, and I wonder when bad things happen, I wonder if that's payback for mistakes I made when maybe my judgment was, not as good as it is now.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine, I'm not a father yet, but I can only imagine that having that pair of eyes on you 24/7 is a life-changing experience in more ways than one.
Yeah. It was a lot more fun until he was a teenager. I remember when he was in preschool, I'd walk in and all the kids would be, Zachary, that's your daddy over there. Zachary, your daddy's here. And he'd daddy, and he'd run over and give me a big hug. All the other kids would start talking to me, and because that's what little kids do. They just want to be friendly. And my son would be, that's my daddy. He'd push him away. Now he's like, he doesn't.
Get away, Dad.
Yeah.
I'm way too cool for you, man.
Yeah. He's still, he'll still hug me. We don't kiss anymore. I mean, I used to kiss him on the forehead.
Sure.
I don't do that anymore. Occasionally, behind closed doors, I'll kiss him on top of the head.
Yeah.
But when I drop him off in the morning in front of the school, it's like a bro hug.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dad.
You just dap him up and send him on his way. What's something crazy about you that people would not believe?
Oh, gosh.
I mean,
you're
you're a wild man.
I'm an amazing dancer.
Okay, I've seen him dance, folks, and that's bullshit. Amazing in what way? In the Elaine Bennis from Seinfeld
Better than
dancing
that?
way?
No, I just I've got good. I used to have good hip mobility.
You're good at taking blue steel social media photos. It's the rich hair, the blue steel, right? You're good at that. Nothing else? Jumped out of planes? Crazy?
I've done. Well, I did that when I was going through Air Force Pararescue. Love to ski. Let's see. I love to shoot guns.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you live in Texas and not like to shoot guns?
Yeah, there's a few Democrats.
There's a few folks.
Well,
we are in Dallas after all. Dallas is very blue.
There's a few Californians that probably.
The Californians.
Yeah.
We've talked about this a couple times today, but also in a couple other convos we've had. I mean, how important has your ability to adapt really shown itself to be here this year?
Man, I would be I started doing this consulting thing that I do during my divorce.
Yeah.
I needed some extra money, and one of the guys that work with me was doing this medical legal consulting. I'm like, man, I need some extra money, and he turned me on to it. And so I just did it part-time around my practice. But obviously when Telos shut down, I reached out to all the attorneys and insurance companies that I've worked for in the past, and I said, hey, I can handle more volume. And so my ability to adapt was I had to completely change my focus from being an active practice to working in front of a computer for 8 to 10 hours a day. And had I not been able to do that, I would probably be bankrupt. I would probably be evicted, maybe sleeping in my car. I don't probably have moved. I don't know where I would be if. So
you pivoted.
I did.
And you continue to kind of find your legs there in terms of this pivot.
And because of the way I saw what happened to my employees, they didn't anticipate any of this kind of stuff. And one of my employees worked for me part-time, but was also a hairdresser. And so I don't even know what happened to her because obviously her shop was going to close down and probably couldn't cut hair for a long time. And so I don't want to have to go through that again. That's why I'm starting out slow, and I'm going to do just a one-man shop for now on, or for the time being, until things get back to normal, until we, the paranoia with COVID and all that kind of stuff is over.
Yeah. Is it hard to stay? I mean, I know you got this military background, but is it hard to stay on track when that muscle was very strong of you going in, seeing patients, having a team to run, and now you're just parked in front of a desktop?
Well, I'm getting back in. It was hard to stay motivated working out in my garage. Yeah. It was always fun when my girlfriend would join me, but working out by myself, especially in the summertime when it was 100 degrees. My workouts were obviously really short, 20 minutes of sitting in a hot box, you're just exhausted. Yeah. But now that I'm back, I'm at Precision, and, whenever I have a break between patients or something, like a 20, 30-minute break, I'm out on the floor working out, meeting some people. Nice. But it's exciting to actually, the other, a couple of weeks ago, if you talked to me, I couldn't cross my my left leg to put my sock on because I had just gotten so tight from sitting all day. Yeah. But I've been working on that, and I'm back in the gym. I'm doing some some good rehab kind of stuff for my hips, and I feel a lot better now. I'm still walking with a little bit of a limp because I've had 3 knee surgeries, and my toe, the whole gout thing. I'm still not 100% over that. So
still trying to get over the hump there.
Yeah, I keep hoping that I will get good enough to play in an old boys game.
Yeah. Then you'll play, and then you'll be fucked up for a year from that. Yeah.
The last time I was fortunate enough to score right away, and so that's all I needed.
Yeah, you were off. You were done. Straight to the ice bath. Yeah. What's some advice you'd give to new chiropractors just getting through their coursework? Because we got a lot of rugby people that watch the podcast because I'm always talking about rugby, having rugby people on, and chiropractic's huge in rugby. Obviously, we talked about some of these bigger schools. Life has a West College now out in California, so there's lots of rugby players who are chiropractors. What's some advice you'd give them? Especially knowing what you know now about COVID and everything,
is basically finding a mentor, because you don't learn everything in school. There's so many things as far as documentation and diagnoses and things like that. So finding a chiropractor whose style of practice you consider to be something similar to what you want, find that mentor with them. A lot of people do that because honestly, when you first get out of practice or when you first get out of school, banks really don't want to lend you any money until you've been in practice for a couple of years. They want to know that you're going to be able to pay that loan back, that you've got a business that's profitable and sustainable. So it gives you can do what I did, which is an independent contractor where I just made a percentage of whatever I collected because 40% of nothing is nothing. So you're not going bankrupt. When I first started, I was bartending, and I continued to bartend until I became profitable working as a chiropractor. So finding a mentor is
that finding a mentor thing is not just waiting just passively for someone to cross paths with, but that's getting out there,
you gotta get out there and meet,
searching for people.
Yeah, I've always
leaning in, asking.
Well, I would always get contacted by email. People would just Google sports rehab or whatever, and my website would pop up.
Chiropractic Blue Steel, Rich Hare.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'd get calls from physical therapists wanting to do their volunteer hours, or chiropractors wanting to come in and just shadow me. That's a great way, and it's easy. Just doing it online, especially if you're in a small town and you only have one chiropractor.
Sure.
You don't have to do that. You just go over and like, hey, can I shadow you?
Yeah.
So.
Do you still reach out to mentors and ask them, like, if you're in a bind or if you're unsure, you might know which route you need to take, but you bounce stuff off those guys?
It's been a long time since I've ever asked advice of a chiropractor. Maybe it's just, I get a lot of calls from other chiropractors asking me stuff, but I feel like I have a pretty good knowledge base. But I do talk to MDs, because I do see a fair amount of post-surgical patients or patients that may require surgery. And so I do communicate a lot with medical peers, not so much with chiropractors, not that I have anything against it. It's just I feel like I know quite a bit about chiropractic. It's the other stuff that I don't know.
Sure. So. If somebody who's watching wants to get in touch with you, it's the best way they can reach out.
Email Dr. Hare at sbcglobal.net. That one's been around for a while.
Okay, awesome.
It's DRHARE.
At sbcglobal.net.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, man.
All right, bro.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Time. It's been fun.
Yeah. That was great. High energy, as always, as promised, as advertised. Love Rich. He's a good dude. I wish he would have told us of a few of the crazy things that he's been up to, but this is going out over the airwaves, so had to keep it cool. Hope you enjoyed the show. Always hope you enjoy these. I mean, I enjoy doing them. I'd love to know what you think. Drop a comment below. Hit me on Instagram at Jess from the Northwest, or if you'd like to do some business together, investing, construction, consulting, email me live at autographconstruction.com, and we'll see you next time.